Space and combat are two things that go together extremely well, and with the recent release of Infinity Battlescape, developers I-Novae seem intent on proving that fact again. Set in a full-scale star system with true-to-scale planets, Battlescape focuses on PvP team-based matches both within space itself as well as spread across the surface of planets. The game appears to be remarkably robust when it comes to player numbers, with servers holding potentially hundreds of players at any one time in non-instance-based environments. After getting involved with a number of sessions, I've, so far at least, found combat to be both stable, lag-free and very smooth. Combat itself is focused over the control of facilities such as space stations and ground bases. And with the choice of 6 different classes of ships, it feels as though there's options for most combat playstyles here. The cheapest ship, which also happens to be the most agile, is the Interceptor. Next up comes the Bomber, Corvette, Destroyer, Cruiser, and lastly the Carrier. Each ship gets progressively larger and more powerful, but equally they become far slower to maneuver the larger they get. Now, ships are earned during your play session as you gain credits for being involved in combat, with your team gaining control over the in-game facilities. The more facilities your team owns, the greater the rate at which you will accumulate credits. Now, these credits are then spent on new ships, and when you respawn you can select whichever ship you can afford and then dive immediately back into combat again. Due to the nature of the game, these ships are not persistently owned, so when you end your play session and return another time, you will find yourself once again with the Interceptor and maybe a limited number of credits. However, it's generally pretty easy to earn credits, and you'll work your way back up to the larger ships in almost no time at all. It's also worth pointing out though that you won't always start with 0 credits or just 40 credits. For example, all the while the match is still ongoing, when you log back into the game, you will still have your previous level of credits. Credits basically reset at the end of a match. The game itself takes place on dedicated servers, and you are free to choose which server you would like to use. As of this recording, the servers had plenty of space available, and while some of these servers show that it appears to be a low population, for example around 50%, that still accounts for a good number of players, in this case around 100 players. Now, whilst Battlescape is a PvP multiplayer game, it does nonetheless feature AI-controlled NPC ships, and these help bulk up the battles, giving them that cinematic look that you can see in the footage on the screen here. And whilst quite naturally the AI is not as good as players, it nonetheless does a very good job. The subject of servers and AI then brings me on to the topic of early access. Now, this is an early access title, and there's no getting away from that. I-Novae are also a very small development team. However, since the Kickstarter in 2015, the developers have made steady progress with the game. Each release and update further refines it, and often regularly adds new features or improves upon existing ones. Right now, there is only one mode of play, which is multiplayer. Eventually though, there will be more, and these include training and sandbox. Training, of course, is self-explanatory. Sandbox mode, though, will allow players to free roam around the rather wonderful star systems and gorgeous planets. More on these in just a bit. Now, the dedicated servers then are owned and ran by the developers and are currently the only option for play. However, I-Novae plan on supporting private servers in the future, and it appears they will also support hosting a local game as well. Ultimately, private servers will also support options of PvE only, if that's what players prefer. Other things that the developers are thinking of adding, and none of this is set in stone of course, are custom ship loadouts, which might well be the next major thing. After that, leaderboards and persistent progression systems, which will include persistent stats and weapon unlocks, skins and ranks, which are also potential features. For longer term goals, I-Novae are considering side missions, and these might include things like escorting missions, assassinations, investigating areas, and maybe even delivery systems. Again, these are long-term goals, possibly for some point next year. Orbital bombardments are also something that are being considered. Meanwhile, the game has gotten off to a very good start in early access, with a limited number of performance and connection issues. There was also an issue where players were unable to use HOTAS due to a conflict with how Steam implement direct import with the Steam controller. All in all though, it's relatively minor issues for a launch of an online game, and actually very good considering it's still in early access. Now, as we come towards the end of the video, I want to briefly mention those stunning environments that Infinity Battlescape features. These serve as great backdrops for the conflict. The ability to seamlessly travel down to the surface of atmospheric worlds is a great one, and it adds immensely to the feel of the game. If you want to see more of these worlds for yourself, then do check out the other Infinity Battlescape videos that I've linked below. For now, that brings me to the end of this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.